Welcome back. And today's episode is on detecting phishing emails. Now at this point, you got to be thinking to yourself, oh no, not another episode on social engineering and phishing. Apologies, don't blame me. Blame Vilfredo Pareto. Now I don't know if you know who he is. He's an Italian economist, engineer actually by training, who came up with one of the most interesting observations of all time. It's called the 80-20 rule. And the reason why we're emphasizing security awareness education around social engineering and phishing at this point is because such a high percentage of the threat that your organization is subject to is tied to this particular area. So hang in there. We'll get through this one last episode, and that'll be, well, I'm lying. There'll be one more, but that'll be it, I promise. Okay. The particular goal of today's episode is to address what do we do if I get an email? How do I know if that particular email is indeed phishing? So I'm going to give you 10 quick tips to reduce the likelihood that a particular email is going to get you or your organization in trouble. We're going to start really simple. Last couple tips will get a little bit more complex. As an FYI, all of the emails that you're going to see scroll past the screen in a second are all real. Okay, they came across as emails to me. I've kept them over the last year or so. And what you're also going to do is don't worry about if they go by fast, right? We've marked up some copies, and they'll be available in the resources folder, right, to make your life a little bit simple so you can revisit these things. So without further ado, let's start with the first tip. We're going to call this one the Vito Corleone. You might be familiar with that great scene in The Godfather, where Johnny Fontaine comes and he asks the Godfather for a favor. He's lost his place in a particular movie. He thinks this is going to be a career-defining movie, and he asks the Godfather for his help. And the Godfather says, Johnny, take it easy, go home, relax, I'll take care of it. And Johnny looks at him and says, well, how can you be so sure, Godfather? He says, this movie's shooting in a week. And he says, because I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. Now, I apologize to anybody for that horrible accent. Zach, can you, post-production, maybe punch that up a little bit? Yeah?
Yeah, you're cool.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
And this I'm going to make him an offer, or an offer he can't refuse, is one of the foundations of phishing. So beware, there's two flavors of Vito Corleone emails. The first is an offer which is too good to be true. If we take a look at this email from Nancy here, that would definitely qualify, $11 million. Nice, but I don't quite think it's right. Maybe we should click yes. This one from Daribo, heck, that's even better, $70 million. Maybe that's the way we should go, right? The second flavor of Vito Corleone email is an offer so bad that it begs a response. Here's a good example. American Express banking. My checking account not working. That's an offer I really need to kind of consider not refusing, right? Second case, criminal case against me. Got to jump on that one right away, right? Shouldn't be a surprise to you that these techniques exploit the things we talked about in the other episodes, right? Greed and fear. Tip 2, the Cuba Gooding, and you know where this is going, right? Show Me the Money from Jerry Maguire, one of the greatest little movies, right? Money is definitely another foundational element to the phishingman's arsenal. It's interesting if you look at it, right? That an inordinately low percentage of legitimate business emails that you process every day actually have anything to do with money, and a very, very high percentage of the ones that are malicious in nature do. Good trigger point to be thinking about, right? So if you think about it, we looked at Nancy's email. We looked at Daribo's email, right? These are both emails, again, what? They're dealing about money. Here's another one. I won the lottery. I didn't think they sent you emails to notify, but what the heck. Here's another good example from Microsoft. They want to award me something. I'm not quite sure why it's Microsoft in the UK, being we're a US firm. Not really quite sure why it's in pounds, but so Show Me the Money emails should all be really an immediate red flag for you to consider, right? And that ties into what we've talked about in other sessions, right? That concept of greed. You see a Show Me the Money email, right? Immediately engage the brain, right? And move the finger off the mouse for a second before you actually click. Brings us to tip 3, greetings gone bad. Again, same idea, right? A high percentage of the emails that you get every day that are legitimate work email actually include your name in the email. And an inordinately high percentage of the emails that you get that are phishing don't. Think about that, right? Pay attention for that. Now, I will tell you, that is why spear phishing and whaling are so dangerous, right? Because they invest the time, energy, and effort necessary to perhaps use your name. So it's not absolutely reliable, but it's a pretty good indicator. So if we scan through the emails that you see that I've gotten, you can see a lot of them have no name. Some of them refer to me as friend, some say hi, right? For those keeping scores, they go by. It's about 0 out of 15 that actually have my particular name in it. So for perspective, right, I looked at a number of typical emails that I get from viable businesses, Verizon Wireless, Amazon, Absorb LMS, and they all use my name in the email. So that's a pretty good indicator, right? I was a bit disappointed. Our bank doesn't use my name in an email. I was also disappointed that an HR company we use does not use your name in an email. I think they're missing a fantastic opportunity to limit phishing attacks against them. Further on, greetings gone bad, right? There's not only the greeting in the salutation to me, John or Mr. Very, right? But there's the to in the address, right? The to address. And again, a high percentage of legitimate email will have your email address in there. And a high percentage of illegitimate email, right, of phishing attacks will not, right? So it's another really good indicator. If you take the combination of where the salutation isn't to me and the email is not to me, that's a pretty good indicator that's probably not an email that you want to click on. Tip 4, urgent, emergency. Now, I almost sang that, right? And you're lucky, I can't carry a tune in a bucket, so I didn't. And it goes all the way back to an early 80s song called Urgent by Foreigner, which reached number 4 on the Billboard, by the way. I looked it up. But another central tenet of social engineering is this idea of creating a sense of urgency. So again, revisiting our emails, right? The email from Chase, right? You know, I know it's urgent. You know why? Because it says so in the email, right? The criminal case, well, certainly criminal cases would be urgent. My dear friend Juliet, I like her. She sends me a nice email here. Again, she was nice enough to tell me that it was an urgent email. If you look further down, I love where she says, this isn't spam and it's not hurtful, this email. So we know we can trust her, right? So urgent email should provoke an urgent response to delete it or report it, but not to respond to it. Tip 5 we refer to as the Frank Abagnale. Clearly one of my favorite movie characters, a phenomenal social engineer. What he's able to do to United Airlines is nothing short of remarkable. And really what Frank Abagnale is about is beware emails that include a request for either business or personal information. You know, if you look at this Chase email over here, right? This Chase email, you know, update your account. Amex, they're asking the same thing, update your account. You know, if you remember in the social engineering episode, we talked extensively about people getting seemingly small, insignificant pieces of information and then increasing what they're looking for. Derivo here tries that particular tactic. Same with this Microsoft email, surprising, right? If you remember Zach Vishmi way back in episode 1, seems like a long time ago, your email and your cell phone are seemingly insignificant but important pieces of information. Why? Where do password resets go to? You know, where does two-factor authentication text messaging go to, right? These devices need to be kept private. Tip 6, we refer to as the spelling bee. Simply put, organizations, corporations, they hire people who win spelling bees to proofread corporate communications and emails that they send out, and the hackers don't, at least yet. So poor spelling and poor grammar is often a good indicator of something not being what it should be. It's not as good an indicator as it used to be. The old days of all our bases are belong to us are no longer there. So if we take a look at the Chase email here, not bad, right? Just one little line, and this for your protection, right? Chase, that wouldn't happen in a real legit Chase email. Microsoft wouldn't make the mistake of referring to active users twice, in one case telling you that they hope you would become an active user, and the next sentence saying thank you for being an active user. Tip 7 is masquerading attachments. Phantom of the Opera, right? Hide your face so the world will never find you, right? That's the idea behind masquerading attachments, right? We've talked about this in previous episodes. There's different ways we can masquerade attachments. We can make them look like a legitimate business email, business document that's been poisoned. Another common way we've talked about is that we attach an executable, something like an exe or a com or an SCR or a zip file that's hiding it. So always be very, very careful. Another little trick that they can use is to hide malicious executables inside of zip files. Or another stupid simple trick is to your important file.xls.scr. So always be careful with attachments, right? Make sure they're not masquerading. If we look, our JX Income lawsuit email had a RAR, which is like a zip file, same idea. It did include a piece of ransomware. We actually analyzed it. Juliet, Microsoft, the sweepstakes email, right? They all included attachments. And my dear friend Aura, She sent me an SCR file about our contract. Perhaps I should click on it, right? No. Tip 8, catfish bite. We probably all know the term catfishing by now, right? Movie, TV show, the same name. It's the idea of spoofing. And how do we spoof in an email? We send an email that makes it look like it's coming from one person instead of who it's really coming from. It's actually ridiculously simple. In fact, most mail clients allow you to do it yourself very easily. Fortunately, many phishing emails, they don't do as good a job as they should at spoofing and hiding that. So if we take a look at the email from Chase, you can see that info at GApp Innovations or something of that nature. It's actually not coming from Chase. That's probably a pretty good indicator it's not a legitimate email. This one's a little interesting, right? It's odd that a sweepstakes email is coming from a Gmail address. Probably not legit, right? Even odder, right? The email from Microsoft, it's coming from finance.ch. That's a Swiss domain. So we've got a UK instance of Microsoft sending an email through a Swiss mail server to a US recipient. Think there's something wrong with that sequence, right? Probably not one we want to go. Tip 9, hyper on hyperlinks. Somehow that brings back memories of Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but let's not go there, right? Now remember what hyper means, right? Seriously or obsessively concerned. And with hyperlinks, you really should be. We've talked about this in previous episodes. This is where we kind of take a slightly ugly course here. So we're going to shoot to a screencast here, and let's take a look at how you can actually see in action.
Okay, let's see what hyper on hyperlinks means really in action, right? So how can I tell that whether this big blue hyperlink in the center of my screen here is malicious in nature or not? So you can see, based on what it says, I would expect that it's going to direct me to AmericanExpress.com so I can reset my account. If I hover my mouse over that, which means place your mouse over it, don't click on the link, you can see a box will pop up, right? I'll do that again. And that box gives us an indication of where that hyperlink is actually going to take us to, which in this case is onesource.ccr3i.com. Clearly not American Express, right? Bit of a concern. Looking a little further at this email, I can sign into my online banking. Let's take a look at that link. Again, I'm going to hover. And when I do, you can see it's taking me to the same location. Lastly, there's a link to the equal housing lender. Expect I'd probably end up at the FDIC website explaining what that means. But instead, I end up at the same exact location. We did look into this particular URL, and at the time we did, it was trying to load some ransomware onto your system if you did click on that particular link. So that's the easiest way to do it. If for some reason this hovering doesn't work, I'll give you a couple alternatives. One I particularly like is to actually right mouse click and say copy that hyperlink. And then what I'll do is I'll open up Notepad or Word or anything I can paste text into, and I'll actually paste that into there. And what you can see clearly again is that we're at that one source URL that it's taking us to, not indeed American Express. Last thing you can do would be to right mouse click anywhere in the page, click on View Source, and this is going to give us the HTML version of the email, right? This is actually what the email is. You can search on either href, which is the reference to where a link is going, or even www will get you there. Very quickly, you can see the fact that we have another concern that I didn't even know about. My source of my image is actually www.johnberg.com, not American Express. One more good indication. If I do search for www, and I go down the page a little bit, we're going to see that rather than going to American Express, we're indeed going to one source again. So this gives you 3 quick ways of actually figuring this out. And you can see in this particular case, being hyper on hyperlinks is going to save you from becoming infected with malware.
And you're back. Hopefully that wasn't too bad. Tip 10, we're at the finish line, guys. Headers prevent headaches. Headers on an email are the history of that email. That tells you where it came from, what mail servers it went through, a lot of great information. Now, this gets a little bit more technical. Hopefully this won't be too painful, but I think it's interesting, and I think it at some point might save you. So let's look real quick at the email from Chase.
Okay, let's look at what headers prevent headaches looks like in action here. We're back to that Chase email. You've seen this once or twice before. And headers are information about the history of your email. You know, where it came from, how it got to you, a little bit about the analysis that's been done, and it's sort of hidden from you. In Outlook, if we click under File, and then we click under Properties, we can see Internet Headers right here. You can either click here and scroll down all the way to the bottom, grab it all. My preference is just to click anywhere in there and say Control A and then Control C. Both of them are going to put them on the clipboard, whatever better for you. Let's go back to our trusty notepad, or you could use Word or WordPad, whatever is easiest for you, and take a look at what a header looks like. So this is what a header looks like. I'm looking at the bottom as we scroll up. This is what I'm going to teach you to analyze, right? You guys excited? Probably not, right? Pretty ugly. So I'm going to show you some neat tools that make it easy to look at this mess. Let's jump over to a browser. I'm using a tool called MX Toolbox. You can just search for email header analysis. There are a number of different tools. And I'm just going to paste that header into this box and click on the Analyze Header button. Beginning of the top here tells us a little bit about the history of the email, like where did it come from a mail server perspective. What I typically look for here is if any of these mail servers are blacklisted. Blacklists are mail servers that are known to propagate bad mail. If any of them are blacklisted, that's definitely a large red flag. Another thing you might look for is large delays tend to be a little bit of a flag. And this gives us an idea. Now, what's also interesting to me, and you probably don't need to do this, but I'll show you anyway. This IP address, I'm not sure. That tells us where this mail server is. So I'm going to go to a search tool that you can use for finding where IP addresses come from. And what's interesting is, let's see, so this particular mail, which is supposedly from Chase Bank, is coming from the Netherlands, right? So we've definitely got some red flags, right? We've got an email coming from the Netherlands. We've got a blacklisted email server. And as we scroll down, again, now we see much more easily interpretable, much more readable results. A couple other things that I typically look for. SPF equals none. SPF stands for Sender Policy Framework. It's a way that we authenticate mail. And the fact that there is no SPF and then DKIM, which is part of that same scheme, stands for Domain Keys Identifier Mail, I believe. And the fact that that failed, all of these things in combination give me a significant pause for concern. Last thing, because I'm professionally curious, where was he sitting when he sent this email? Or at least where did his computer tell the internet he was sitting? So we're just going to see where he was sitting when he sent this email. And that looks like it's just outside of Vancouver. Yeah. So that's interesting, right? We got somebody who's sitting outside of Vancouver, or making it look that way, bouncing mail off of a server overseas, coming from Chase Bank. Yeah, I don't think so. Through blackmailed servers. So this is a great example of where header analysis can make it very, very simple to identify a potentially malicious email, and again, save you guys a little pain.
We covered an awful lot of ground in this episode. We've put some great resources into your resources folder. The one I think is most beneficial is a cheat sheet that you can print out, put up on your wall, right? The 10 quick tips, easy for me to say, right up there on the wall, keep you guys safe. If you haven't seen the movie I referred to, Catch Me If You Can, please do. It's an awesome movie. A hint for the quiz, Summer Wind. It's my favorite anyway. So thanks. See you next time. Let's be careful out there, okay?